Hey there team, we're having a look at trigger areas today. We're going to go straight from the start. I'm going to set up the player movement and everything. So I'll do that rather fast. There is a video also available on our class website. So if I bring up our class website right here, on the page 4, once it loads, development, you'll find all of the documents that you will need when it reconnects. On the page for development, scrolling down ever so slightly, you'll find the character controller setup. There's the video I've already made about this, and then all the documents that you can just open up and download. So I've set up 3 folders in my assets. One comes default with the scenes. I've set up one for all my scripts because I'm going to have a few, and one for all of my materials. Okay. So we see here I've downloaded those 2 things. All I'm going to do is drag them into that folder called scripts in Unity. And let that compile quickly. Just making sure that nothing exists with the same names, and that obviously there's no errors in my code. But these are the same ones we've used in school, so they're fine. Cool, so I'll zoom through this part. I'll set up a cube to be the floor. Call it floor. Scale it up. The way that this code works, I need to give this thing the layer ground. Or any layer really, any name. No. Okay. Deeper down layer. Okay, so floor, you can have the layer ground. I'm gonna go and create a capsule. This is gonna be my player. Just drag it above the ground. The name player and the tag player. It needs 2 things. It needs an empty variable, which I'm going to call the check, which is just the position of my player's feet, and it's going to need the camera, which is going to be 0, 0, 0, the distance from its parent to the capsule. I'll just drag it up a little bit so it's coming out of his eyes. Cool, so now I've got a capsule. He's got a little check down at his feet, so check that he's on the floor, and his eye is the camera. So now I'll use the scripts mouse look, goes in the camera. It needs the body, which is the capsule itself. And the capsule needs player movement. It needs a couple of things, a character controller, which we'll add in a second, ground check, which is our check, and the ground mask, or what layer it's looking for. What is the ground? Now it does need a character controller, so I'll grab a character controller. Just leave that as all the default settings, and click play, just to make sure that this is all working out. Cool, I can look around, I can walk around. Yep. It's all working just as I want it to. Push escape and get out of there. Alright, so what we're looking at with this task is the 4 cubes, each of different colors. I'm just going to rename that capsule so he doesn't get lost as the player. 4 cubes, all of different colors, and I want a triggered event when I enter each one to tell me the color of the cube using a UI display. Alright, so let's grab 4 cubes. 3D object cube, move it to point 0, 0, 0, which is inside this floor. I'm going to make it scale 5, 5, 5, and then sort of drag it around. I'm going to put them on the 4 corners, so I'll use the Y-axis and click in the middle so it's not orthographic mode, or perspective mode I should say. I'm going to give this one the name of red, and I'll color it soon. Then I'm going to control D to duplicate. Move it over here, I'll call this one green. Select 2, control D. Move them down. Think of 2 more colors. Yellow and purple. Awesome, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes. They're big scary cubes all around our player. We're going to go into our materials, and we're going to right click and create 4 materials called red. And I'll duplicate the red and change it because I'm going to do a couple things. Firstly, the color I'm going to pick is, in this case, red. I'm going to turn the alpha right down to about here, about 100. So then when I drag this onto the one called red, so I'll click on it to see it. Oh. Should be able to affect its opacity. Yep. Just check how this looks. There we go. Got our transparent red cube. It is solid. It's got a collider so we can't walk through it, but that's what we're going to do for all of them. Now I don't want to make force, I'm just going to duplicate this. Control D. And now the only thing I need to change about them is their names. Rename. This one will be green. Yellow. Purple. Alright, and then of course the colors are green, purple, and yellow. So just to click on these to have them select, or I could click on this and check its name up here, so that one's the yellow, or in the hierarchy. Obviously this one's purple. So now I've got 4 glass areas. Now as we saw, these are all solid, so I need to go into each one. I'll start with red, just because it's the name of the hierarchy. Make sure they're all is trigger, because these are going to be trigger areas. Now your task in class was to make sure that we only have a single script that will trigger if I walk into any of these trigger areas. I'm just going to use the console to output something to the console to check if I'm inside of one. And I'm going to make a script inside my scripts thing. I've already got those 2 for movement, so I'm going to make a create C# script, and this one is going to be called cube. Oh, we'll call it trigger display, because it is going to display something when we're in a trigger area. Notice the starter code is just your standard code. It's going to go ahead and make that for us. Alright, so I'm going to go into all of these and drag that component. We could also drag it this way, and yellow's got it, or we could drag it this way, and then purple's got it too. So we'll get this opened up, and then we'll start some coding. So once again, the code's going to check a couple things, and there's actually a few different ways of doing this. What we're going to look at, firstly, I'm going to call version 1. Version 1. So as the code editor just loads quickly, I will jump back into here. So version 1 is going to have 4 unique canvases. Each one is triggered dependent on the cube that they're inside. And I'll show us how to do that one. Whilst the code loads, I'll go ahead and create canvas, and this is going to be called the red canvas. Go ahead and create another UI canvas. This one can be called the green canvas. You'll notice that when a canvas is made, this event system is made. we do not want to get rid of this. This is going to be the thing that's actually telling our canvas to do stuff. So I'm just going to put them all right underneath each other. What was it? Yellow canvas. UI canvas, canvas. And of course, this one is going to be called the purple canvas. Alright, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 canvases all set up. Now I should probably add some text into them, but I'll do that in just a second. As we see, our canvas area is very big. There it is. Now you'll notice it's actually scaled to my window shape. If I zoom out, it'll be a little bit different. When I made all of these, so that may change as we go through, and I'll show you how to adapt that. Alright, so into the code, here we go. So we want to, and I'll write this in pseudocode, I'll get rid of all the current voids. We're going to check what's, firstly, this is going to be placed on each cube. So the cube is going to check what's, check if the player is in it. If the player is in the cube, then display a canvas. If the player is not, don't display a canvas. So this will be the simplest way of doing it, but as we will find out, there are more efficient ways of doing this type of thing. So we're going to start off with our void start. Oops, I ought to put in the squigglies for me. And then we're going to set up another void. This one's going to be called on trigger enter. There we go. And notice this one auto put in the stuff for us. But we'll need the collider. This is going to be the thing in the trigger area. Generally it's just other, as you saw when it showed up. So let's have a look. This is placed on the cube. This is happening when the cube is entered, so we need to check if it's a player. If the thing in the trigger area has the tag that is equal to player, and as we remember, with our player, we gave it the tag player. So if the thing inside of the cube, inside of the object we're currently scripting, has the tag player, so the player's gone into it, then we want to do these two things. And let's just move our comments down so that they're just above the lines that they're talking about. I'll just move this one up here. So there you go. So we need to check if the player is in the cube, then display a canvas. And then this is going to be later on if they are not inside, do not. Perfect. So we need a canvas. And this is where using a public variable is super useful. Public canvas. So we're trying to get a canvas object, and we're going to call this one color canvas. Notice how I spelled color the normal way here as well. Doesn't particularly matter because this name could be anything, but I'll just need to spell it the same way every time. So when something is in the trigger area and it's verified it's the player, I want color canvas dot enabled to equal true, or 1 equals sign. So we're setting, we're not checking. Which means at the very start, I'll put this at the top, we should always declare our variables at the top. I want color canvas to be false. So when the game starts, color canvas is dot enabled is false, so it's turned off. And then we'll sort this one out in a little bit if the player is not in it. We're not going to view it. Alright, so looking back, let's save this, jump back into Unity. Looking back in Unity, we now have our scripts, which are all asking for us to tell them what color canvas is. It's currently saying I've got nothing. I can click on this little dot and it will give me all the canvas objects in my scene, or I could drag one over from here. Now my canvases are, well, there's nothing on them, so let's fix that. In red, we're going to right click, we're going to add some UI text, and we're going to call this one red text. We'll do the same with green text, yellow text, and of course purple text. Now these text elements, I'll double click on them to be taken to them. They're all overlapping and they're all in the middle. Now I want their width to be I don't know, right, 500, the height to be 400, so we've got quite a bit of space, and I want the text to be exactly in the middle. Now with the red one, it's going to say red. The color is going to be it's going to be inside a red area, so I want a dark color like a black. And that's all that canvas is going to have. The green one, I'll set those same parameters here. 500, a height of 400. I'm going to put it right in the middle. Text is going to be green. Once again, I want a big black color because I'll be inside that green box. 500, 400. Text in the center. This one here is, of course, yellow. I'll set it to be black. And lastly, 500, 400, center, purple, text, black. Now it's all overlapping and it's quite hard to see. In fact, one more thing I will do is I will increase the text font to 150, which will work well for most of them, maybe not yellow. We'll see. Oh, yellow fits. Okay. Now, very hard to read because they are all overlapping, so I'm going to turn each one off until I need to deal with it. And we notice they gray themselves out. And just as I thought, purple, for some reason, is not being seen. It's because its height I didn't change. There we go. Now it's got the height to be seen. Turn it back on. Cool. And I'm just going to shut these so that it's a little bit easier in the hierarchy. Now, let's go back to my cubes. Double click on this to be teleported. Alright. So, red cube. You are going to be displaying the red canvas. Green cube, you're going to be displaying the green canvas. Yellow, yellow, and purple, purple. So let's try it. So it all started, and let's have a look at the code very quickly. It says right at the start, void start, whatever canvas you're associated with, disable it. So no canvases are currently enabled. I'll walk into the red area. It says red. Cool. Walkout is still there. Walk into here. It says green over top. Oh, I missed the yellow one. Where is it? Right there. Yellow. And lastly, purple. Now it is quite hard to read that because obviously all the text is over top of it. So we need to do one more bit of coding. And that's if the player is not in the canvas area, we want the text to be disabled again. So this is going to be the opposite of an on-trigger enter, and that is of course an on-trigger exit. It's once again going to have the collider. I'm just going to leave this one as other, the standard, and write in a quick little check as well. So if the other collider in this equation, the player or thing inside the cube, has the tag that is equal to player, then we're going to take the canvas and make its inability equal to false. So let's save that. This is just saying look for the canvas that's associated with the script, which we set dynamically inside Unity itself. And this is making our whole program so much more efficient. As we might be able to imagine, setting something like this up with different canvases, but all on the same script, could be really a really powerful tool. So let's quickly just walk into one of these areas. Walk into the red one. Say it's red. I'll walk out. Stop saying red. Yellow. Purple. Green. Alright, so that's what I like to call version 1 of this sort of technique. There are other ways, and we'll have a quick look at a second one. We'll call this one, of course, version 2. Now, to eliminate the amount of canvases that are actually showing up, we could instead have one canvas with multiple pieces of text inside of it. Further yet, we could have one canvas with one text, and in fact, I'll get rid of all of these canvases, delete, and add just a single one. This one, well, I don't want it to be a child of that. We'll drag it down. There we go. We'll call this one, rename, canvas, call it the color canvas. And it's going to have one value, or one thing inside of it. That is going to be the color text. So this is going to affect our Unity script somewhat. First of all of these no longer have anything assigned to them. Missing doesn't exist anymore. They're all going to instead be using this color canvas, which we could hard code because we only have one, but to keep it more dynamic, we'll set it to this. This is making our script more specialized for this type of use. Obviously we can use it in multiple places like this, but in this case it's going to be dynamically changing this bit of text here called color text. I'll double click to go to it, and I'll set it up the same way I did the other one. So 500, 400, text size 150, center text will be a color that doesn't exist, and we'll just write white. White is not a color of one of our cubes. Alright, so version 2 is going to have a lot of the same code as version 1, but I will get rid of all of the if statements and everything just for simplicity, just so that we can see it all from the start. And I'll rename this the thing that left the trigger. We're going to need, in this case, a few more public variables. We're going to need a bit of public text in this case. We don't really want to affect the canvas, we want to affect the text exclusively. Public text, and that's, oops. And we'll call this one color. I'll just double check that is all good. It may be canvas.text. I'll just double check. Because we want to affect some UI stuff, we need to first say, hey, please be using Unity engine.ui, and then we see text is now something that we can affect, UI text. Cool, so we want to affect some text from a UI, and this is the really important thing. We're going to make a public string. So remember, a string is a series of characters put together. It's a word. This one's going to be called the we'll rename this one to color text, color UI text. This one is just going to be called the color. It's going to have a default value of blank, which, as we know, it's a string, needs some quotation marks around it. And we're going to be updating this dynamically in Unity, so we won't worry too much about it, but this is our default value. Now, just the same as before, we're going to be both enabling and disabling this as it's needed to be done. So to start off with, we'll say that the the color UI text, so the text object in Unity dot enabled is going to be equal to false. So text should not be happening right at the start. Let's double check that in Unity. So we'll jump back over, have a look. Cool. As we notice, these now have two things. UI text, which we'll say is this, and this, and this. So these are all the same text box now. Their color is all blank because we haven't updated it. But just double checking that when it starts, we don't see the word white or blank or anything on the screen, which is perfect. It is disabled. Then on trigger enter, so when our when something's gone into the trigger area, we want to first, of course, check if the thing that just went into the trigger area is the tag of player. In this case, we want to do two things. We want to update the color UI text. We want to update its text value to be equal to whatever our color word is. And then we want color UI text dot enabled to be set to true, so we can see it. Cool. Alright, so we've still got the value set as blank, but we'll check that it works. We'll walk into the red one, and we should see blank pop up on the screen, the word blank. blank. We haven't set up the on trigger exit, but we'll do that now. Firstly, we'll set all these words from blank to be red, green, yellow, purple. I just let you see the screen the entire time while I did that. I'm sorry, I'll do that again. I've updated the colors and I'll show you where I've done that. But I'll walk into the green one, so it should say green now. And I'll walk into the yellow one, it should say yellow. This one is saying purple. We notice we're no longer getting that overlapping error, but they are still staying when we leave. That being because each time we walk into it, it's updating that same text field to have different text in it. So they're not going to overlap because it's not different text on top of each other, different text fields on top of each other. It's the same one being updated dynamically, which could be what you want in your experience, but in our one, we want to set up those on-trigger exits as well. So very quickly, I've just set the UI text to be our UI text object, and the color to be just a string, just some text of whatever the color is: red, green, purple, and yellow. That last bit of code is just going to say if the thing that left the trigger has the tag of player, we want the color UI text dot enabled to be equal to false. This is basically saying once you leave the trigger area, if you were the player that left, turn off the text on the screen. Pretty straightforward, just like before. Now there's valid reasons for doing both of the ways that we've looked at today. Version 1 and version 2. Just to show that this one works, I walk into an area, yellow, and it turns off when I leave. Red, off, green, and purple. There are valid reasons for doing it both ways, with just a single canvas that updates the text dynamically, using variables. Public variables being super useful, because we can just update their values right here in Unity to whatever they need to be for that specific object. It limits the amount of scripts that we need. I did all of that with one script, and it also, it cuts down on the amount of canvases quite drastically. This works really well for some things like this, but for others you may find showing a unique canvas would be better. So you really need to evaluate what your program is doing. This is good for space issues. Oops, sorry, I lost my stuff. Space issues, obviously there's less objects going on, less scripts, so it's going to take up less space. This is also sorry, really dynamic as well, because we can use it in multiple different ways. We just need to make sure that our scripts are very detailed, they've got good comments that let us know exactly what things are doing. Currently these variables aren't well commented, and most of the if statements and what's actually happening isn't very well commented either, so it's quite hard to really tell what's going on to an outsider looking in who doesn't know exactly what this scene looks like. So this is our current task, and I look forward to seeing us all complete it.